Okay.
Recording in progress.
All right, well, it's 5 after, so we'll go ahead and get started. I will call this meeting to order at 9:05. We do have a quorum of the voting members. I think we have all the voting members here. We have Carol, we have Chris, we have Joy, who are members at large, and all 4 officers are present. The first order of business is the approval of the May minutes. We did not have quorum in June to approve the May minutes, so we're going to go back and we're going to get those minutes approved. Any questions regarding the minutes? Carol?
Yeah, I need, in May, I asked when we would be receiving the budget, and I was told it would be at the end of, in the June meeting. So I would like that on there for the record.
Haley, can you add that to the minutes, please? I see Haley. There she is.
Hi. Yeah, I can go back through the May meeting and look at the recording and go through that.
Okay. Any other changes? Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I don't want you to have to, does she have to do all that? I mean, people
Yes, she
remember me
does.
in May. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, if we
It was
want
at the end of the meeting, Haley.
Yeah, if we want a correction to the minutes, she'll need to go through and verify that it was said, and then she'll go back and add it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other additions to the minutes?
The May minutes.
The May minutes.
We have another person. Who's Ado Dowdy?
I'm not sure.
We need to know who we have on.
Yeah, it's Otto Dowdy. I'm an attorney. You've been invited.
By whom?
I'm sorry,
Whom were you invited by?
Carol.
I don't believe you have a standing for this meeting. You're not a member of MMHCA. I think that that's out of order, but I'll leave that up to the members to decide. You have no right to be here.
I think I'll speak. I think there has been a debate to begin with about whether or not this organization is subject to the Open Meetings Act. I think that's a conversation we need to have later as a group, and we need to seek consultation on that. But for the general board meeting, before we go into executive session, I don't have a problem if others attend, whether they're members or not.
Yeah, I thought that we abided by the Roberts Rules of Orders, and in that it states that the meeting, needs to be, if it is going to be an open meeting, it needs to be part of the bylaws, and I'm not sure that it is. So
No.
I don't believe that it is. So that's why I would question it. It would be my question to just open it up to anyone, but that would be my verification on that. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Or, I mean, I'm
definitely not a member.
I would say that there, I think we probably should be a little bit careful, guys, because there has been a precedent set where people have been in and out of these meetings and have been in and out, invited, not members, not counselors, for other reasons. So,
Yep, I agree, Joy. We're going to go ahead and proceed.
I move that we ask the attorney to leave the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, per the rules,
You can't. Oh, sorry.
I second it. I second it.
Folks, Robert's Rules of Order. If you would like to speak, raise your hand, please.
Christy, I have a point of clarification.
Robin, go ahead.
Yeah, I second it.
I have a point of clarification.
Members,
Sure.
the removal.
Who's allowed to vote on this?
Pardon me?
Who's allowed to vote on this?
Officers are allowed to vote.
I mean, on this motion, I'm sorry.
Officers are the only voting members on this board.
That's not accurate according to the bylaws. an officer can only vote if they're duly elected. If we go by the bylaws and not by the way we've been operating, only Jim Blundo can vote.
So as president, it's my job in part to interpret these bylaws and make decisions. So
You
we
are
have,
appointed by Jim to be the president. You are not elected, so you have
That's
no
right.
bylaws. We have
I
been
don't agree with you, Sue.
Well, that's the truth, please.
So
and-
one at a
and-
time.
person
We-
who has standing to vote under the bylaws is Jim Blundo, who is the last duly elected officer of MHCA.
So
Christy.
I don't agree. That's not how we have been practicing, and that's not how our latest set of adopted bylaws, which unfortunately are from 2012, are stated. So
It is
our
exactly, Christy, I'm sorry, but I have them in hand and they're stated that to be a duly recognized officer of the association, you have to be elected. And we've not been able to hold elections, so Jim has been asking people to fill those positions until we can hold an election and then revise the bylaws so that there is no one who is appropriately here except for Jim. So we can continue to operate the way we have been, where the officers he's appointed and the standing committee chairs vote, or we can just have Jim vote. I think those are our choices under the current bylaws.
Carol, what's your point?
The first time I met with the lawyer was to understand the bylaws, and the bylaws clearly say that officers and members at large are the only people who can vote. I paid a lot of money to ascertain that after what happened at last September's budget meeting, when all kinds of people either popped in to vote or were whispered onto the board in August. And Lori, no offense to you, but I arrive at the August meeting and Jim is saying, I'm putting you on the board. And then Lori votes at the September budget meeting without ever having seen the financial reports, none of them. So that is the first reason. That's the first reason that I met with Adil, is to understand how do things work. And he's the one that made it very clear to me who can vote.
So Carol, I take it that you hired this attorney to come onto this meeting and represent you.
That is irrelevant to the, all right, let's stop. Let's all just stop. Okay. We need to do what's best for this organization and our membership. None of us are doing that right now. That's not okay.
Christy, what do you think is best for the membership? Like, I'm just curious, because you're an appointed, I'm appointed, we're all appointed. So as an appointed president, what do you believe is the best for the organization?
Well, what I don't believe is best for the organization is to continue to argue, to not have any kind of budget, and to not move forward. It's not helpful. So there are arguments on all sides.
I guess I didn't direct my question appropriately. What do you believe is the best for the organization, whether we as appointed members of this board, randomly invite attorneys into our board meeting or not? You think, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, do you think this is a good idea? Is that why you're okay?
I do not think that I don't think that the reason behind why attorneys were brought into this is good for the organization at all. I also don't think that many of the sidebar conversations that Carol has noted have been good for this organization. I don't think that conversations about kicking people off the board because they come with collegial discourse is good. This board has not behaved appropriately in the last year. Here is what I will say. Last year, this organization wanted me to become its president. I left the room, which usually doesn't happen, but should. And I allowed a group similar to this to vote me as president. If there wants to be an argument that because those bylaws were never enacted all the way back to Sue's point, then I will step down today and all of you can figure this out. Because there isn't any part of this that has happened in the, let me finish, in the last 10 minutes that is in any way worth my time. Here is what I will say to you. If this group will come together today and agree that we need to follow the last set of bylaws from 2022 moving forward, then I will continue to serve as president and we will move forward as such. And we will do the good work that we're doing with bylaws. But if we want to argue all of the things that this organization has done outside of its bylaws, all the way back to Jim Blundo being the only member, then I suspect that Jim Blundo will be the only member at the end of this meeting. Because what I'm hearing from my board is that they are frustrated. All of you are frustrated in different ways. So I don't care if a lawyer stays or not, because I want to follow our bylaws and I want to be ethical. I don't have anything to hide. And none of you should either.
Absolutely.
You are more than welcome to stay. And if all of you don't want to abide by the 2012 bylaws until such time as we can get appropriate bylaws in place, which I think we should. I don't like our current bylaws. I think it's ridiculous that Sue Schaefer, who has served for this organization for decades, doesn't get a vote. But the problem, folks, is that's on all of us, every single one of us. We haven't done our due diligence with the bylaws, not at all. And later, when we decide to argue about the budget and contracts and everything else, whose responsibility is it to give our contract employees, Terry and Jim, contracts? It's ours, not theirs. They don't write their own bylaws or their own contracts. These mistakes are collectively over decades the result of poor board management. So I will ask this group collectively, do you want to proceed with the 2012 bylaws and move forward with this meeting? What are your thoughts? Joy.
Yep. Can I make a motion to go forward with the 2012 bylaws meetings, or with the suggestion that you have at hand to move forward with those 2012 bylaws in place until they are changed and moved by the bylaw committee?
I'll second
I
that. So
second
we
that motion.
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Sue.
can just,
You're seconding it, so yeah, I got it.
Is there
Motion.
discussion?
be discussed.
Yeah.
Discussion to proceed as an organization with the 2012 bylaws until we can put new bylaws in place, which I will tell you, spending every Friday morning for an hour, we are probably about 4 weeks out from having them. Discussion.
Christy, this is my concern. Section 2A says all officers of the association shall be elected by ballot from among the eligible members of the association and will serve until their successors assume the office. If we agree to go by these bylaws, we don't have any legitimate officers of the association. That's my concern. I think we need to have you continue to operate as the president and the other officers. But my concern is that if we agree to go by the bylaws and not by the practice that we've been doing since we haven't been able to make bylaws, that you will not be able to continue to function. That's my concern. And I think it's important that you're able to continue to function. As far as the bylaws go, what we need to do to make those legitimate is that you guys need to work on them. We need to hold an election in June. You're absolutely right. It's not because of mismanagement of the board, however. It's because we were trying to save our profession. We didn't have time to revise the bylaws because we were trying to save our licensing law. We were pretty busy with those things.
I understand that, and I do respect it.
And I will continue operating as we have been until we can get a new set of bylaws. I think we need to have an election in June. You guys are working hard to get a set of bylaws together. As soon as we can have an election and elect officers, those bylaws can be passed and be legitimate, but they're not legitimate when an unelected board does it. I'm concerned that we're just perpetuating the problem here. And I think we need to be really smart about what we're doing.
Joy.
I think that I completely agree with everything that Christy said as far as putting the board bylaws in place that were already there for 2012. I think that we should abide by the bylaws as they are written. And as far as voting by ballot, if we are saying that we have not been by ballot for the bylaws, we're getting ready to get into muddy, very, very muddy and murky ground about other things that we have not voted by ballot for over the last however long, particularly into this tall grass of voting for and against people who have been appointed and voting for and against budgets and voting for and against, or whatever the case has been. What Christy has said is absolutely true, that she stepped out of the room and was voted in by the people who were in that room. If we are saying that that vote is not okay, we are getting ready to say that every single vote, literally every single vote happened in the 7-8 years that I've been a part of this organization has not been okay, because that is how all of those votes have been. And that means that is getting ready to be terrible implications as far as, and we already have money ground as far as that budget piece is concerned, as far as officers are concerned, as far as free $1,000 memberships are concerned, lifetime memberships are concerned. We're getting ready to bring into question every single thing that has happened. And if we're going to do that, that is a very scary, scary place to be.
I think there is also an argument that we have always, at least in my time on this board, kept these meetings open to our membership. There was no one at that meeting when I was elected president that wasn't allowed to vote. So is there default in saying that we have allowed our membership a vote? Is there anything in our bylaws that say we have to send out something to them?
Let me see what it says. It says, all officers of the association shall be elected by ballot from among the eligible members of the association and will serve until their successors assume the office. All dues-paying members are eligible members of the association. One other concern I have about what Joy said, and I really appreciate the fact that we don't want to invalidate what we've done over the years, but our practice has been that we allowed standing committee chairs to vote because we didn't have, there were 80 members when we started this of MMHCA. We didn't have enough people to fill out the board. And so that's been our practice, so that if we change the practice, as Joy said, that invalidates what we've done over the past few years, if we change our practice at this point.
That's not what I'm saying, though, because what you're saying is we didn't have enough people to fill out the board then when we had that number of members. At this point, we do have that number of people to fill out the board. Those people are already in place that fit the bylaws as they are written. And we're in a space now where, unfortunately, with the growth of the organization, there is a question as to how, as to validity or not, what's valid or what is valid or what is not valid. My concern, like I said, because if we begin to negate those things, that means that, again, we're going to get into like these lifetime memberships that you all have. all of you all are out of good standing with memberships because nobody voted for you to have lifetime memberships. Do you see what I'm saying? Like that is going to get very, 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 that gets muddy. But now that we have those, the members at large and things of that nature are in place to the degree that we have allowed them to be in place, that is even down to Christy being in the space of being president, Haley being the secretary or treasurer, and I think Amy being the secretary or treasurer. I don't know. I'm speaking. I don't have the list in front of me, but whoever's the secretary, whoever's the treasurer, and the officer, the office of past president in those spaces. And I think that we also need to speak to moving ethically and morally as we move forward. And there are some spaces where if we start bringing if we start bringing the things to light, it's going to look, it's going to be a bad look.
And Joy, I agree that forward, those things all make sense. I was addressing your point about the validity of what we've done when we have not been able to do bylaws and we've had to continue to operate to save our profession. And those votes that have been taken included the votes of the standing committee. So if you're going to change it now, that means that all of that is invalidated because we voted on budgets. We were voting members. So I don't want us to do something. We really need to think about what we're doing. We don't want to do something that invalidates it. I totally agree with that. And I think changing our procedure now puts that at risk. I think my recommendation is that we keep operating the way we've done until Christy and her group can come up with a set of bylaws. We can hold an election, and then we have a duly elected board who can act on the bylaws.
I want to make a point about Robert's Rules of Order, which is that we do allow people to speak at least once before someone else gets to speak again. And Chris had his hand up.
So I looked into the bylaws a couple years ago and found that most of us wouldn't be board members by the bylaws of our organization. If we go by those 2012 bylaws as they are written, rather than how we've been conducting business since, according to folks, Jim is the only board member, and nonprofits in the state of Michigan require 3 board members really to operate. And so my concern is that not only are we going to invalidate years of actions by this board, but it makes MMHCA in some ways a defunct organization. And then it calls into question how all of these decisions have been being made. How we've been filing a yearly report with the state, having held a board meeting when we haven't had enough people to hold a board meeting at all. And so it's strange to me that we're suddenly calling into question and trying to follow these bylaws that for the past several years, this has never been mentioned. And so I'm concerned that the sudden return to the bylaws and wanting to be very, very specific about them is in ways to try to structure or get certain outcomes in this meeting. I would like to move to call the question and close debate and vote on this.
I would oppose that just for a second,
I second
Chris.
that. I second that motion.
You can't
Hold on.
do that. Robert's Rules of Order. I have a say, and I'm going to make my statement. Chris, I totally agree with you. If we want to operate, I started this thing 40 years ago, and we were able to do marvelous things over a long period of time, and including getting our license codified and our scope of practice codified. I negotiated the Blue Cross Blue Shield arrangement. We've done amazing stuff, and this could blow the whole thing up. I'm sitting here listening to it. It's very upsetting to think that I spent my whole life working on this, and this is what you want to get down to. I don't think we need to follow the bylaws in strict order, because we can't. And we either have an honest relationship where we can get along. Everybody on this board has pretty much been brought in by me or somebody close to who was on the board. And I really appreciate all the things that you've done. I really, so this is very upsetting to look at this as a legalistic thing. And there's a threat placed out by Carol regarding fraud. And I'm a victim in the sense of the person who's being attacked for it. And then you bring on an attorney. I think there's really I think there's a serious problem that needs to be addressed. This board worked together.
I'm gonna pause. Jim, I want to stop you for 1 second, only because it's 9:30 and we have a presenter that is supposed to be here. Carol, do we know if the presenter is coming?
Let me tell you what's going to happen with the presenters. I've talked to Susan, although she's here, she agreed to not come on because I have a plan that I'm working with social work, the lobbyists from social work, the lobbyists from MMHCA, and we're going to deal with this Meridian thing. This was an inappropriate, not Sue. First of all, Sue doesn't represent Meridian. She has some real legitimate complaints against the reimbursement issue and the clawback, and we're going to address that. And I have a plan worked out with the lobbyist, with the National Association of Social Workers executive director, the PPL people on our side and their side, and that we're going to meet next Tuesday and talk about a plan, and including I have talked with Meridian, and they know about the whole thing. And this is inappropriate to have this person. I don't want to attack Susan because I like her and I think she has some really good points, and we're going to include those points in the deal. But this is not the place to bring it. And the impression is that she somehow was representing Meridian, Christy, through how you presented it. She's not. She's representing a complainant legitimately, and that should not be part of this meeting. So she's out. I told Carson Gatt not to come on. He said he agreed because I felt that something like this might happen. I don't want them seeing our dirty linen or our dirty stuff. I don't want them to pull out as our lobbyists. So I canceled him. So really, number 3 and 4 on the agenda are over. So I'm going to say there's an elephant in the room. Carol has made a complaint of fraud against Terry, Mike, and myself. And then she brings a lawyer on, which is really gets into some really messy stuff, because I don't want to get into any messy stuff I totally agree with you, Christy, that we want to move forward, but we have to do it the best way we know how. And the bylaws have not been followed. I agree. And there's been so many factors that have gotten in the way. And I agree that we need to move forward. And like Sue said, and Christy, we need to come up with a set of bylaws and make everything legitimate. I think that's a good thing. Do you want to operate? Do you want to operate as a board like the way we've been doing? Or do you want to sabotage the whole thing? And you're right, I'll be the only one and everybody's going to go.
Catherine had her hand up, and then I have a comment. Catherine?
Yeah, so I think just from I understand the concern about the lawyer being on. I get that. We've got some stuff going on. But our practices have not precluded anyone from joining our meetings. It's on our website.
I gotcha.
That everyone. And so if we were to do that right now, I think we're opening a huge can of worms. We are a public group. We have advertised on our website when our board meetings is, what time it is, the locations, when we're at locations. That has always been on our website. So he could have come in and say he was a licensed professional counselor. We wouldn't have known any difference. So I just don't, the effort and the energy that we're using to have him to not be here, it's not worth our time, because we don't have anything to hide. What we've done, we've all done in good faith. We've all done based upon past practice. No one has done anything nefarious. We have had some missteps under my leadership. We have had some missteps, absolutely. We did not follow the bylaws because they are, they're archaic. we cannot follow the 2012 bylaws because they are archaic. We, for years, have done best practice for the benefit of MHCA and for the benefit of the counselors of the state of Michigan and all of those we are connected to. We have all done it in good faith. Even the challenges that we're having right now, they're from a good faith perspective. So I am right along with what Christy has said. All of us need to decide that we're going to do what's best for MHCA and what's best for the counselors of the state of Michigan, which means we do need to practice based upon what we have been doing, because we simply cannot, as Sue said, we can't do what the bylaws have said because it won't work. We all will be defunct and won't be able to go forward. So our practices have been that everybody is welcome, and we've never, in my tenure here, turned anyone away. We have asked who they are. And sometimes we've asked, the reason they're being here. We've never turned anyone away. And we have practiced based upon what we know. So we've got leadership who have been appointed. Yes. We've got then once appointed, we voted on some folk. We've done lots of things based upon, and I want to say this loud and clear, based upon good faith. Everything that MHCA has done up until this point has been based upon good faith. Not some things, some missteps, right? So again, I've owned this and I've owned it several times. My first order of business was to take care of this, and then implicit bias came. Not an excuse, not a justification. It's just the reason we don't have bylaws is because of that. But now we are about 4 weeks out from right-siding the ship. And I'm inviting everybody to do everything necessary to give us the space and the time necessary to get MHCA functioning under some rules and bylaws and regulations that will honor who we really are. So that's
Thank you,
Catherine,
Kath. Thanks,
I agree
Kath.
with what you've said, but I have just one concern, and that's that Carol has brought serious charges against Jim and Terry of embezzlement. That's a very serious matter.
Yeah.
Now she's hired an attorney and has had the attorney join the meeting.
Mhm.
I think that puts Jim and Terry at risk. I don't think that's fair to them. So it's not just inviting an attorney to come, it's hiring an attorney to pursue a claim of fraud and embezzlement. And I think that's a different matter than just inviting an attorney to come.
So I'm
may I speak?
stop just for a second. Hold on. I see people that have their hands up that haven't spoke yet. And I did say that I don't see that there's anyone that has their hand up that hasn't spoken yet. First of all, part of the reason that I don't care if there's an attorney in the room is because we record our meetings anyway. So if Carol just wanted to send the recording to him, he would hear all of it anyway. So the threat's there whether he's physically here or not. I don't care. I don't think it's up for debate anymore. It's not worth the time. You can be frustrated if you want. He's going to hear this meeting regardless if we vote to remove him or not, because I won't stop the recording because that's not what we do. I am going to tell you that I am beyond frustrated. I don't know that I agree that everything has been done in good faith. I don't. Jim, when I took over as president, I called you for a touch base. And one of the first things you said to me was that you were going to call Carol and you were going to call Joy and you were going to wish them well and thank them for their service. You don't want people on this board that disagree with you. And that has been evident. And that concerns me. I don't want to be part of an organization that behaves that way. I don't. That being said, I understand that you have built MHCA from the ground up. This is your baby. You carried it on your back. You were the CEO, the CFO, the chief marketing guy, and probably the custodian. And arguably, if you didn't take on all those roles for the last 30 years, none of us would be sitting in this room, and we sure as hell wouldn't be licensed. So for that, I thank you. But I think there also reaches a point where the ownership of the organization needs to broaden. And I think you know that. We have served in good faith, as Catherine said, for the most part, but we haven't entirely. And that's disappointing to me. It also concerns me Because when we start hitting a point where we have discourse, and we have a lot of it, particularly in regards to the budget, right? I go back to the last standing set of bylaws, because from a liability standpoint, that's the closest thing I can get to safety. I don't know that I want to serve as this organization's president anymore. I don't. So whether you think that I'm your president, or whether you think that that was an election that didn't count, I don't know that this is a mess that I want to try to clean up. So Jim, this has been yours for 30 years. You can have it back. And at any such time where the organization or the leaders that it so puts in place moving forward would like me to come back and serve, I'm happy to do that. But for now, whether this is whether this is a real resignation, a fake resignation, I wish you all well.
Thank you. I understand why you're doing that. It's very messy.
It is.
Christy, it will be a tragic loss to have you leave. You've been excellent. And was that you saying that you're stepping down?
Robin,
Well, you're putting her on a spot. She needs to figure out what she wants to do.
Oh,
no, this group needs to figure out what it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, we're fighting over a budget.
No, we're also fighting a charge of fraud by Terry and me. I take fraud seriously. I've had 40 years of integrity and honesty, and I've done everything straightforward as the best I know how. There might be some slight things that weren't handled correctly, but this doesn't rise to that level. And I very much resent that this would come down to an accusation of fraud. That's the elephant in the room. And that's why I want to have a conversation about that, because I think we need to do that to straighten it out. Whether you stay at Christie or not, I understand your frustration. Catherine and I have talked. Catherine, I don't want to brag about her, but she was the best president, and Napoleon were the best presidents that I ever had, and took us forward immensely. And then when Catherine wanted to shorten it by 1 year, I thought you were the perfect person to bring forward. But you didn't know, and I didn't know that was going to boil out to this kind of controversy and trouble. So you haven't done anything. It's tough. This is a tough situation. I didn't expect it to be like this. I wish it wasn't, but we're here. And as long as I think we have to deal with the elephant in the room, which is if Carol's going to prosecute and she's bringing an attorney forward, I need to protect myself. I need to protect Terry. This is no joke. We're talking about fraud. It's a felony. Like, I really don't want a felony on my background, and it doesn't meet that standard anyway. And I can go get an attorney. I'll go get an attorney, Carol, to bring on, have my attorney. I don't want to do that. I don't think I want to protect myself that way anyway. I just want to have us get to this point where we're really moving it forward. And I thought we were really making great progress with Catherine, and we have. I really enjoyed working with her. I would have loved to have enjoyed working with you too, but there hasn't been a way to get to it. So that's my piece.
Yeah, Haley, I think that I would like the record to show that I am officially stepping down, and I wish you all well.
Okay.
I would leave the meeting, except I think I'm the host.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Christy, I'll document that. Thank you.
So I believe Carol was raising her hand to speak.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not prosecuting. I have the lawyer here to help me know what's legal and what's not, because things haven't felt right to me in the past. And I'm so sad, Christy, that you're leaving, but I absolutely understand why.
So Since Christy is stepping down, I'll be the president for right now, and I don't mean to usurp you, Christy.
I'll step in as past
Thank
president.
you, Catherine. Thank you.
Irene has her hand up.
Yep. The problem, Carol, is that you put out publicly in an email to everybody slander. You accused Jim and Terry of embezzlement. And that
Strong
is
word.
what?
Strong words.
Irene has the floor.
Yeah. What? Yeah, I
No,
mean,
go ahead, Irene.
that's the problem. We spent 45 minutes avoiding that issue. We've spent 45 minutes when that is, I agree, that's the elephant in the room. They've been accused and they haven't been able to address that. I was horrified when I read that email. I don't come to these meetings because I have a supervision group on Friday mornings. But when I saw that email, I was horrified. So that's what needs to be addressed. And that's why I have a problem with the lawyer being here. That's the agenda here. That's your agenda, Carol. And that makes me really uncomfortable that you went ahead outside of this group and talked to a lawyer about MMHCA business. That just doesn't seem right.
I've been, one second. So what we're getting ready to do here is we're going to kind of manage the flow because we've got a lot of conversations here. And so we're going to go Carol next, then Joy, then Chris, then Robin. Okay. And just manage our time, guys. And I'll keep some time, but Carol, you're next.
I'm sorry, I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay. Joy, you're up next.
So I read the same email and I'll say this, I didn't see an accusation of embezzlement. What I saw in that email when I read that email was what it could be considered.
Oh,
She didn't say, she said that this would be considered this. Now, as far as, what is right, wrong, or indifferent, like I'm absolutely no attorney or anything of that nature. And to spend whatever she spent on, because I'm sure, an attorney is not cheap, but to spend whatever she spent on the attorney to be able to get clarity for whatever it was that for the points that she wanted the clarity for. I think that speaks to wanting to, to parse out whatever the things are. Now, as far as I didn't see anything about charging anybody, pursuing charges or anything of that nature. And I'm a little bit confused as to that, because the email that I read, she made a statement as to what was legal and what wasn't legal, based on the space. So that's that's my piece in that. So
next.
So that I have Jim, that is so inappropriate. I wasn't finished.
Yes, let's please keep the side comments with this. It's not going to work. So let's keep going to see if we can get everybody's comment out. And if we can't, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. So let's keep our comments, and so what I'm going to do at this point, just so that we can get through all of the comments, I'm going to mute everyone. And the one who's speaking, then, we'll unmute, because we've got to be able to get the comments that we have. And I see the question. We're going to go to Chris, we're going to go Robin, and then we will go to Lori. So I'm going to just mute all. And now, Chris, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Catherine. So I think we're getting kind of lost in the weeds here talking about the email and the claims. And I think that's a thing, but I think what's more important is talking about the content of the claims. Is that last year there was a pay raise that was taken without authorization of the board for, it sounds like 2 months. And then the board came in and approved the budget therein afterwards. But before that pay had already been handed out by my understanding is the direction of Jim to Terry Mike. And then it was only really brought up once the budget came up. And so I think as a board, part of our job is to consider the liability of the organization and our own liability as well if the funds are not being used the way they're supposed to be as a tax exempt organization. And I think having a lawyer, whether that's Adil or someone else, give us some feedback on that to make sure that we're running things legitimately, because it's the board members' responsibility to be stewards of that money for the purposes of the organization. Does that make sense? And sorry, I'm checking questions. And I think that's the meat of what we need to look at. The rest of it talking about what was in the email, what's the point of procedure? Do we go by the 2012 bylaws? That all seems to be something, we don't want to actually talk about what the meat of that situation is. And I think as a board, we have to go, okay, is that a problem? Like, was that something that we need to be concerned about and be responsible to and react to as a board? And if it's not, okay, great, then the budget was approved and we can move on from that point, right? And we have to find that out so that we make sure that we are running the board as we're responsible for as a board of a 501c3, because this can threaten our tax exempt status. This can threaten our standing as a nonprofit corporation with the state of Michigan. And so I think we need to figure that out. And then if we want to talk about the content of the email or the tone of the email or everything else, we can do that then. So I yield.
Thank you, Chris. Lori, is it Robin? Unmute yourself.
Thanks, Catherine. Also, I think, Catherine, it would be appropriate if you turned off the chat. Can we even do that? Because we should not be chatting. We should not be listening to messages in the chat if there's not vocal messages. I don't even know if you can do that, but can we all just not do the chat? Because I think that would then put us all, because I think the same thing is happening. If we could do that, that would be great. My concern is that as I looked at the bylaws, we as members of this organization have to uphold the ethical standards in order to be a part of this board. And I couldn't wrap my head around what I consider, and this is my opinion, and after being on many boards, my opinion as far as conducting business outside of a board meeting. And that is against Robert's rules of everything. It is against Robert's rules of order. It is against the ACA. So when you look at the ACA, when you are making, I have it here, so I'm just going to read it, you guys. Counselors know and understand the ACA Code of Ethics and other applicable ethical codes. We all understand them. So when we are doing this, if we look at how we conducted ourselves, an unwarranted complaints, we do not initiate, participate in, or encourage the filing of ethical complaints that are retaliatory in nature or are made with reckless disregard or willful ignorance of facts that would disprove the allegation. So when I received that email, my interpretation was that was, and you guys have all said that, like your interpretation also was that was presenting what was considered facts by one individual. That individual then was sent by the current president, please do not conduct business outside of this organization. And then Carol proceeded to write another email. Folks, that is 100% against the ACA ethical guidelines. It's against our bylaws. She should be dismissed from this board. There is no way that anyone anyone. I am telling you, if this happened in another board, there would be no way that anyone could be able to sit on a board after the president had dictated. And, you know, it was like, because everything, Catherine, you said was in good faith. So Christy, in good faith, kind of gave Carol a warning, kind of gave her like, hey, Carol, you know what, this isn't the right place nor, time to do this. And Carol did not adhere to that warning. At that moment, when we all received that second email after Christy's email, it should have been very clear to all of us. I don't care which side you're on. I don't even know what side I'm on. I'm going to be honest. I wanted facts to be presented today. But I also know the fact is that when that second email was done, Carol should be out. I would make a motion that we as a board dismiss her from this board. That is my motion.
In order to discuss it, I'll second it so that people can discuss it. I'm leaving, but go ahead and discuss.
And to Terry, to tell you the truth, wow. So I don't even know where to go from here. In best case scenario, your best president for this just quit. Like she literally was the best president for what's happening right now, because that's how her mind works. That's the skill set that she has. And so since I understand that there's a motion on the floor, and I personally don't really understand. I don't know Robert's Rule of Order enough, but right now I'm gonna, whatever the legal term is, I'm gonna just pause that motion. I'm just gonna pause that motion for a moment. I want all of the comments to be able to get out. I want the comments to be able to get out, and then we're gonna table that motion, and we're gonna come back around to the motion if we need to. Just let all the comments get out as best as we can. And so, Lori, at some point you had your hand up and then it went down. I want to give you that opportunity to make your comment.
Thank you. I have to say that I am really disappointed getting those two emails. I've served on a board before, and we have taken off a member for going against, doing business outside of the board meeting. I've seen it happen in another community board. I have to agree with what Robin says up to that point. And I'm sorry, I read those emails too. And those were veiled threats of prosecution for embezzlement and fraud. And I honestly, there's a part of me that, do I even want to be on a board that allows this kind of language to go on? I know I'm not a very important member on the board. I'm relatively new. I don't really have a vote standing on this board. But I do have to tell you, the individuals I've met, I've been really excited about being a part of and to help grow this profession. But after those two emails and all those accusations, call me conflict averse, I'm ready to just be done, because I think those kinds of accusations done outside of a board meeting, and then to bring in a lawyer, those are all kind of veiled threats, and I don't appreciate them. I'm not even the one being targeted, but I don't appreciate that kind of action on a professional board. So I'm not sure where I stand on staying or not. I'm very disappointed. Christy has felt compelled to step down because of the actions and not being taken seriously when she put out there the Robert's Rules of Order. You do not conduct business outside of the board meeting, and yet another email came out. So I'm going to have to think about this before I decide whether I even want to continue. But I agree with Robin. And I've seen that happen before where a board member got dismissed. And I would agree with Robin on that.
Thank you, Lori. And Jim is up next, but I just want to say something before Jim speaks. So I want to speak to what happened. And this is what Chris was talking about, the big elephant in the room. So from my stance, there are two big elephants in the room, right? There is the lawyer piece is an elephant in the room, not so much an elephant, it is, you know, but then there is the piece about the money. And this is why I say good faith. Because at the point in time in which the raises happened, there weren't secrets about it. And I do understand that it can look like it was a secret because it wasn't discussed. What we had happening at that time really was practices that had happened before, right? Jim and Terry pretty much, and whoever else was on the budget committee at the time would have conversations. And then up until that point, the board, it was an agreeable kind of an environment. We all kind of understood, we were on the same page. And so there was never even a thought that there would be a question about raises. Like there wasn't a thought that there would be questions about it. So in that sense, it was in good faith. Yes, in hindsight, it was definitely not a good practice to do. But what I want you all to see is we were on the transitioning of, these are the phrases that I've used, kind of mom and pop to national to statewide organization. As mom and pop, there were lots of things that we did to keep the ship running up and going. And part of it was, so one of the things that I have to paint is that as they took those raises, right, they did, there was no intention to hide it. And it came up as it came up. And so for it to be, that there wasn't good faith. That's the point that I want to make. Now, was it bad business? Absolutely. Especially in hindsight, it was bad business. It should not have happened. But it wasn't an attempt to hide it or cloak it. The other point that I want to make, wherever we fall on the idea of it, is the same people that we are accusing of, or that we think might have done something in bad faith, are also the same two people for 6 or 7 months took no pay when I came to the board, without question, took no pay so that the organization could stay afloat. I am not trying to justify an act. Certainly in hindsight, it wasn't the best thing to do, but just for me, having had conversations and kind of an understanding that we were doing business as we knew to do it, and we did not anticipate or expect or anything. So that's really, I just wanted to paint a different picture, add some additional information, and just, take it from there. Okay. So Jim, you're up next. Unmute yourself, please.
I want to thank you, Catherine, for those comments, because that's exactly right. I wanted, first of all, Chris DeBoer has some misinformation. I'm not attacking Chris. There was no intent to do anything behind the scenes. The way that got interpreted is what the problem is. That we were trying to come to a budget, and it was delayed. Carol was part of the reason that we delayed it, because she needed more information. We had that private meeting with her to explain things, and then it came to a vote, and it passed 9-2, but it took till September to get to it. So, and I also, Terry Mike can confirm this, I said, if the board decides to not go forward with the pay increase, then I will return the differential at that time. It was a 2-month. Was it 2 months? 2 months. So I would put that money back in the account, because the integrity is everything. And you're right, that 6 or 7 months that we had to do that, we saved the organization from collapse, Terry and I. But there was no intent here. There's not like an illegal action or hiding or anything. And it's being painted that way. And that's why I'm having a hard time, because Carol's painted me into there's a veiled threat or not a so veiled threat there. And I want to make sure Chris understands that there was no kind of whatever that description was. That's a different opinion than what I'm going to give you. So you have to decide who's telling the truth. I like to think that I have the integrity. But we've had a lot of circumstances that we had to work around and through, like Catherine has said. I couldn't have said it any better. And I've always enjoyed a great relationship with the presidents that we've had, and even the board members until this thing. And the whole interpretation of a budget is what is really disturbing to me, because a budget isn't money. I've done budgets for AMCA as well as for MMHCA, and I worked on the finance committee for ACA. So I know a budget isn't money, and you have to figure out what it means. It's a guide. So I'll stop there. But thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Carol, you're up next.
I just have a couple points. I've maybe missed 2 meetings since the fall of 2019. Robin, I don't think I've seen you in a meeting in the last year. I'm not sure about that, and Irene, I haven't seen since the vote last year, but before that I hadn't seen in a few years. So I just want to note that I think people who don't attend regularly don't understand and know all the issues. And secondly, I'm not threatening anything. I was trying to make you aware of what's legal and what's not. It was not legal what happened. It was not legal for them to take money without the board knowing. That's it. It wasn't legal. Integrity is everything. You had to wait till it was approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Chris?
Yeah, and I want to speak a little bit on what was said there, and then I also want to speak to the motion that was made. As far as, it wasn't anything underhanded or anything like that, that very well may be. It may people may have understood what was going on. But at the same time, we wait until we get that approval in a general way to start taking a raise, right? That's the way it works in most other places. We wait till the boss or the governing body, which would be the board, approves it. And if it hasn't been approved, that's an issue that we get into legally. And the thing is, I understand, Catherine and Jim saying everything's being in good faith. And I get that. But as far as the law is concerned, it's not worried about our intention. We have to go by it to make sure that we're running the organization as, a responsible body, because we have, we've fiduciary duties, to use legal terms, to the people that have memberships. We have certain requirements to the IRS and how we conduct ourselves, as well as the state. We have public donors, and so we have that responsibility, and I want to make sure that we're following that. And I understand maybe during the budget meeting that had been discussed, and if this becomes like a future thing that we have to worry about, any such thing in the future where a pay raise is kind of known about or agreed to in a budget committee meeting, but it hasn't been approved by the whole board, wait until after it's approved by the board, and then, you can make it effective back to when the budget happened. Instead of, we can make it retroactive that way, instead of making it up front. Oh, they get the money, and then now we have to question that, right? It's important that we understand that we do have those duties as board members, and to conduct things in a good way. And I'm not saying anybody was doing anything underhanded. I don't know that. I wasn't at those meetings, and I don't know what's going on in everybody's minds, right? But I do know that we need to make sure that we're above board in our processes. Part of the reason that I stopped showing up to these meetings is because I did read the bylaws years ago, and I realized that we weren't conducting anything by them, right? None of our processes matched what our bylaws were. And then I looked at our state filings, And the state filings about who's on the board versus who's on the board in these meetings is a very different story. And that very much confused me. And so it's been kind of running, you know, as far as the board, it's been kind of running by the seat of its pants process wise. The reason I came back last month is because Christy reached out to me and said, do you still want to be on this board? And I was like, if we can get things running how they're supposed to be, right? Like how we're supposed to run things, you know, I'll come back. If we can address the way board membership is kind of created and then take it away, because that always seems very odd to me in how this business is conducted. And even today, you know, this idea that we're going to remove Carol because she conducted business outside of these meetings. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I left too is because there was so much discussion outside of the board meetings that I wasn't able to keep up. Every week I would hear about another meeting between other people outside. And I'd ask for like, hey, can I get an invite to that? Or can I be involved in that? And that very rarely ever happened. And so the idea now that we are upset that someone is conducting board business outside of these meetings is also kind of outside of how we've been running things. And it's the selective application of processes and rules that's just very, very confusing to me. And so I would say, you know, and I'm going to throw this out there as a suggestion for Catherine because she's running the show. But can we limit discussion to the motion on the floor right now? Because currently we're talking about a whole bunch of other things that aren't the motion. And I'm guilty of that in the past 5 minutes, and I apologize. But can we do that so that we can get that figured out and move on?
Okay. So one thing, yes, we can do that. Chris, I want to hear Sue, and then we'll go for the motion. Sue? Sue, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little klutzy with Zoom, so I did figure out how to raise my hand. And I'll have to figure out how to take that down. I'm concerned that we need to operate on behalf of the organization. I'm concerned that this really threatens MMHCA, and we've got to figure out how to get past this so that we can continue to operate as an organization. I think we need to try to do that in the rest of this meeting. And to speak to the motion, I've always had a lot of respect for Carol Berger. She knows that. I'm really concerned about what happened. I know the budgets have been held up. They always were passed on time, but they've been held up because Carol has had questions. And I've always viewed those questions as a new board member legitimately wanting to understand something. But the reason the vote was delayed in 2022 was because Carol had questions and we couldn't move forward. The board all knew what was intended. It was just a matter of clearing up Carol's questions. So I'm beginning to wonder if it was more than that, because now there are accusations of embezzlement and an attorney brought in, which I'm saddened and disappointed that that's happened and that Carol has done that. But I'm wondering, and I'd like to hear from Carol, I know she has her hand up, if she were to continue on the board, it looks to me like either she totally distrusts the process and believes those accusations, or that she's out to try to create trouble for Jim and Terry. And I don't know how she can continue under either of those scenarios. That's my concern. How can she continue no matter which of those is the case? And what can we do to move the organization forward and get past this so that we can do the important business of the association? Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I see you, Carol. I see you. So I understand that there was a question. I understand that. But I am going to just speak to that I'm going to speak to that just from a sense of having some understandings. And then I'm going to go for a vote. And I have a hard stop at 10:30. I had no intention of conducting a meeting today. No, I have a hard stop at 10:30. So I understand that the question was towards Carol. But having had the privilege of conversations on both sides, from the beginning, Carol has sought to understand. And so the reason I can say that nothing was afoot with Jim and Terry is because I walked with them. That's why I can say that. I understand what it looks like. And yes, Chris, it was bad business. And there was no intentions of continuing this. What Carol actually did was brought it to the forefront. Guys, this is bad business. That's what Carol really did, is Carol highlighted where we were missteps. And I'm very, very intimate with it because I was the president at the time. So I owned those things, understood why, but I owned it. And so Carol's intention along the way was to make sure that we are doing good business. That was the intention, that we're doing good business. And so that would be the part. She is asked basically for us to cross our T's and dot our I's on everything. And so she didn't understand. She brought points of clarification. She brought things forward that weren't aligned with the bylaws and all of those kinds of things. That was the experience that we were having along the way. Now, I wanted to make that statement just kind of to respond to Sue's question, because I don't want this to go back and forth. We don't have time or space for that. I want to do the business at hand, and then we'll kind of make a decision after we go for the vote. So on the floor.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can I say one thing?
Yes, Haley.
I'm trying to figure out who are voting members on the board, and I'm having a hard time finding that document.
That's the rub.
I can answer that as far as Christy sent out in her August meeting packet. So according to Christy's meeting packet, the voting members of the board are Christy Hottenstein, Kristen Sankey, Haley Rayner, Catherine James, Chris DeBoer, Carol Berger, and Joy Creel.
Thank you. Can you send that to me? I know she sent it out and I can't find it in my email.
Sure, I'll send it right now.
Thank you.
The challenge that we have, right? Even with that right there. So, Chris, say those again.
Voting members, according to Christy Hottenstein, an email that she had sent out, were Christy Hottenstein, Kristen Sankey, Haley Rayner, Catherine James, Chris DeBoer, Carol Berger, and Joy Creel.
Point of order.
1 second.
Okay.
So the challenge is this. What we've said thus far is that we would continue practicing with past practice until we until we have the new bylaws. I understand what you're saying, Chris, and what Chris said, but that's what we've come, because if we do exactly as the bylaws say, then everything we've done up until now is not, right? It's not. So if we continue with the way we practice up until now, I see your hand, Joy. If we continue the way we practice up until now, voting board members are Joy, Carol, Chris, Sue, Robin, or Sue, myself, and Kristen Sankey.
And Brenda Avert.
And Brenda Avert.
And Robin M.
And Robin MD too.
So this point of order, at least the agreed by the previous last acting president who set what the voting members were. There were those 7 folks, and trying to suddenly add folks right now before a vote is wrong.
No, what's wrong is what you're saying.
Jim, wait. So Chris, let me just say what I hear what you're saying, Chris. So this is the dilemma that I have. What we've said that we would do is keep past practice until we have the new set of bylaws. Is that's what we've said we would, because if we don't honor, Joy, your head, what? Tell me what? Joy, go ahead. You're mute.
I have I'm on mute. I have a fear that no way this is going to look or feel fair to anyone. Honestly, like on the table. Wait 1 second. And I have a suggestion and a motion, and I don't know exactly how to do it in a way that works or whatever the case is. My suggestion is this, because right now we don't have the president, and we don't have right now we are, which is what I'm saying at the beginning, this is getting ready to implode. If we are looking for bylaws to govern us, is it appropriate? I get we got all this stuff going on, and I'm not speaking to the things. Is it appropriate to complete the bylaws? The bylaws committee is basically an open committee. Whoever wants to be in the bylaws or whatever, complete the bylaws. So then we're in a place of fairness to whoever, whatever, complete the bylaws and make these make these motions, whatever the case is, whatever is in place in current bylaws that are up to date. Because if we take a vote now on either side, on any of the issues that are on the table, let's just be fair, clear, and all the things. If it's adding people to the board, if it's people voting that hasn't been here, if it's who can vote and who can't, or if it's using old practices that we're not saying are correct, this is a lose-lose situation right here. This is lose-lose for everybody. Emotions are high, all of the things. If we continue, and this is the same kind of warning I said at the beginning, if we continue, this right here is getting ready to implode. The bigger elephant on the table, even all these elephants on the table in the room and all the things, is that the bylaws are not done. Can we complete the bylaws with the open bylaw committee? So whoever wants to be a part of the bylaw committee that is set, the date and time is in place for Friday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Zoom link that does not change. We complete this bylaws in that week of span. And yes, it's 4 weeks. It's about a month. Give us a month as an organization, as a body who has the best interest of counselors in the state of Michigan in order. Give us 1 month to agree upon a set of rules and bylaws to govern us by, and then set forth whatever votes and things or whatever the case is by those votes that went forth by that open bylaw committee. The committee is an open bylaw committee. Anybody who wants to come has whatever the case is. Because right now, just because it's legal, just because it's right or whatever the case, it may not be expedient for an end goal of any kind at this point. And this is just a neutral trying to be as neutral and as objective as possible. Is that something that we could possibly do? The end.
And Catherine, can I speak? I'm sorry.
Chris, go ahead.
The concern is that we have bylaws that are sitting there. We have the practices that we've been doing, and then we have these bylaws that are in the future. We can't adopt the bylaws that we come up with as a board unless we know who's voting. And that also makes the bylaws a kind of battleground, right? For whatever sides there are here. And I think that's bad for the organization too. Like, that's my concern. If we're suddenly changing how things work and what goes on right now in the midst of this discussion, it's going to be a political battleground. It's not going to be for the best interests of our membership and our profession. And that's my concern there.
Yeah, I hear you. And what I want to say for going on record is that to the ones that Christy sent out, and I understand what she was doing and going back to the 2012 bylaws. I understand that. And if we do that, if we go back to 2012, and this is what we've said over and over and over again, if we go back to 2012, then that means everything that we've said, that we've done, all of the voting that we've done that hasn't been the 2012 bylaws, all of that is still in question. And so what my suggestion, what looks right to me, as far as if we're going to have continuity of what we've done, even though we weren't following the bylaws, that's what we've done. We've had on record these same people voting for the last, since 2012, right? These same rows voting since 2012. Now, I am in 100% agreement with Joy, and frankly, I am not, one second, I am, this isn't the role I want to be in. I stepped down for a reason, because this doesn't fit my life right now. I sat down for a reason. I'm only doing this because Christy stepped out and the meeting needed to conduct together. So I am in no, I'm agreeing with Joy that I understand that we've got a motion on the table and, I can take the hit for this or whatever, but we are not positioned in this meeting to vote for anything. We're just not. We are not. We need to take a step back from everything and just, I don't know what it looks like after this meeting, but for a vote for anything, we are not positioned to vote. Everything is up for grabs and up for question right now. Everything is. And so from my end, we have 3 minutes left of this meeting. We have 3 minutes left of this meeting. And then we've got to figure out how we're going to reconvene and go from here. So we've got a quick Carol and a quick Jim. And Chris, if we can make it back to you, we will. And then I'm going to, invite a motion to adjourn. Carol.
So the attorney just told me that following the bylaws as closely as we can, the bylaws are what govern the organization legally. Mm-hmm. It certainly does not undo what's been done if we try to follow them closely now. And we can ratify what's been done. We can legally say what's been done is okay. We approve of it. Let's see. I'll stop at that since I know we're ending the meeting.
Thank you, Jim. You're on mute, Jim.
Yeah. So this is Catherine, thank you. I think we probably can't vote on anything at the moment, but we need some things. I will preside over the bylaws meetings starting next Friday. I'll also act as a temporary president or interim president until we get somebody in that place, because I think that we have to have that. We have to have something in place to have the organization. We have to have or I don't want to go into all these meetings with lobbyists and everybody else without knowing that we have an organization that's functioning. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion to table. I make a motion to table the motion to remove Carol.
I second your motion.
Okay. And
Call the vote on that real quick.
thank you. Call the vote.
Who can vote?
Right, exactly.
I'm going to go with where it was
Everybody.
before the meeting. Chris DeBoer, aye.
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 Ayes have it.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
One-
And
Can I speak for like 30 seconds, Catherine? Sorry, I know you got to go.
yes.
Jim, I do have a concern about you overseeing the bylaws meeting and becoming president pro tem, considering what the discussions are. If we want this to appear above board, I don't think that's a good play. I don't think that's a good thing. But obviously we can't discuss it today, but I think someone needs to. I really don't think that's good for the health of the organization. So maybe we can talk about somebody else conducting that.
Let Jim do as he suggested and preside over this to get it straightened out. We can't fiddle around any longer. We've got to get it straightened out. I've known Jim Blundo forever, and I totally trust him to do that. I move that we proceed as he has suggested.
Okay. So we've got I'm not sure. I know we've got all kinds of things happening. And we've got, my hope is that we can get Christy back. That's my hope. That's going to be my reach out. See if we can't get Christy to come back. Because so I've got a hard stop, and I don't think moving forward that we've got anything that we can benefit from. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I mean, I don't make a motion. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Hey, Catherine, this is the secretary, Haley, speaking again, just because I do the notes and I'm going to look back through all of this, but I just want clarification that Christy's no longer the president and that Jim has stepped up and he's going to do that and he's going to be over the bylaws as well. So that is what I'm putting in the notes, correct?
That's what's been stated. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, right? And so that's a question on the floor. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
Third. Meeting is dismissed.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping into that.
For hanging into the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll make it through.